Hi, welcome to Sacred Spaces. I'm Laura Kelly and today we're here with Dylan Brady. Dylan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Laura.
Now you're the director of Studio 505 Architects.
One of the directors.
One of the directors. And you've picked a very special building for us today. Can you describe where we're standing and what's behind us?
We are standing on the south-east corner of the Hoddle Grid of Melbourne, which disappears away behind me here on Flinders Lane and here on Spring Street. And the building behind us, the building formerly known as Number 1 Spring Street, is a building by Harry Seidler. And it's a building that's wormed its way invisibly into my architectural library, I guess.
So what makes it special for you? What's the impact?
The building is it's part of a great classic tradition of modernist buildings, and it's got within it a whole series of quite efficient, elegant, almost invisible components that, when read individually, don't really kind of stick out, but as an ensemble, they build something that still is invisible, but actually is incredibly elegant and incredibly well resolved.
Now just take us back a step. When you talk about modernist architecture, what are some of the features of modernism in Melbourne architecture?
Well, Melbourne modernist architecture was kind of was in a nascent state during the modernist period. The first multi-storey office building, Orica House, Number 1 Albert Street, was by Bates Smart, Australia's oldest firm. And that's a building that stands up against all of the contemporary buildings being built in America and Europe at the time. In terms of true modernist buildings in Melbourne, we only have a few, and Harry Seidler is one of Australia's great modernist architects, and he's built buildings in Brisbane and Sydney and Perth and here in Melbourne. He's done a couple here. This building it's about a tradition that's not about ornament. There's no ornamentation. It's all about geometry, and it's all about fine materials used sparingly in very clear kind of ways.
And in terms of the facade of this building, it's quite an unusual facade that opens out. It's got that beautiful curved edges right at the edge of the grid. Can you remember when you first saw this building and what your response to it was?
I can't remember when I first saw this building, but I remember very clearly that this building forms a part of my memories of Melbourne. Because I was born here, but I then grew up in England and northern New South Wales, and when I was living here in Melbourne, I was quite often walking through the gardens to houses in East Melbourne and Carlton and those kind of places. And so Wellington Street and the approach to the city up there, that building has always figured quite strongly in my mind about it. The other reason it's quite memorable for me is that this building on this corner, this is the clearest, most defined corner of Hoddle's Grid. There's no building on the other side of it. It's a park. There's no building opposite it. It's a railway. It's not stuck in the middle of anything, and it really does become the sort of the prow of Melbourne as it splits down this street and forms off into each of the main axes.
Now, we've got a very particular angle of the building right here, but there's some other interesting things happening on the other side of the building, which would be great if we went and had a look at those.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's do it.
Let's go and have a look.
So Dylan, we're standing now on the Flinders Street side of the building in front of an unusual little garden.
This is one of the spaces of generosity of the building, which is a creation of this little copse of trees and highly trafficable gravel, which is something that I don't think a lot of people see as they walk past. But it's this little hidden moment. I find it could be a speaker's corner. It could be somewhere that people come for repose and rest and let the sort of eddy of traffic kind of swirl you by. I mean, it's quite a sort of a Dr. Seussian moment in here with these trees and quite a sculptural architectural garden.
And also just the fact that quite often when you're in a big city like Melbourne, you don't see a lot of these curves happening in buildings, really, do you?
Really, it's It's a mathematical, geometrical, but essentially, ultimately, a human kind of space and form. And the way the glass block and the granite, even though they're flat sheets, are turned off and kind of smoothly kind of calling that energy, and I find to be, really impressive.
And when you talk about generosity from an architectural viewpoint, is it that sense of opening up out into the city?
Yeah, it's about a building providing more than simply net lettable area or gross product or building to the boundary. It's about recognizing that quiet moments lend strength to loud moments, and not everything need be loud. So that generosity is about saying, yes, we own this space, yes, it could be part of the building, but actually we're giving it back in order to make the building better, make the city better, and make our relationship with this particular corner better.
Yeah, absolutely, and make it this unusual little moment, as you say, that people can walk through the city and discover for themselves.
Like, I don't know if you've been here before, but like when you stand here and you see the vista out to
beautiful.
What Melbourne has, from sports to culture to arts, is it's quite interesting.
Absolutely, and I've never stood in this spot before, so it's quite amazing, that view out there. Now, I'd love to go around the other side of the building as well, because you've talked about some other little hidden moments, as you call them.
This great little unnamed laneway between ourselves and Hotel Lindrum, which is this kind of one of the rare moments in Melbourne you get to experience vertical geography, which happens everywhere in Sydney and Hong Kong, and everyone goes, yeah, whatever. But there's not many public stairs in Melbourne, Flinders Street Station, and this one.
Oh, brilliant. Well, let's go and have a look.
Okay.
I honestly didn't know these stairways were here.
Yeah. It's one of Melbourne's unnamed lanes, and another little generous link. But you can see there's not very many places in Melbourne that have this kind of vertical Hong Kong, Sydney style connection. Yeah,
it's interesting because I'd never really thought about it before, but actually Melbourne really doesn't have many of these at all. And honestly, I think I've walked past here and just never noticed this.
Yeah. It's got that kind of secretness. That's why it's a little bit sacred.
Lovely. And it leads up to a courtyard up the back, doesn't it?
It does, another space.
Excellent. Let's go and have a look.
Okay.
All right, so we've got another view of the building. This is quite impressive as well, I must say.
Yes, this is the northern elevation of the building, and you can see that there's a large kind of core wall, which is basically the lifts and the services and stuff like that. But then the office itself wraps around in a circle and comes back. So you see it straightening up to the grid, and all of the shades are tilted then for the northern light rather than the southern light that we were dealing with.
So it goes back.
Elevations.
It goes back to what you were saying at the beginning about the fact that it's all of the integrated elements of this building that make it so special. It's not necessarily that you go, wow, that's a standout feature. It all pulls together beautifully.
Yeah, like the fire escape stair is where it is from a code point of view, because that's as far back from the corner as you can be, but it's also been considered as part of the ensemble elevation so that it really feels considered as a project. And this entrance and this courtyard and how you then flow through into those spaces that we were in previously provide this kind of really sinuous link through the bottom of what's effectively an ultimate grid, which is our city.
Well, it's a very unusual building actually within a Melbourne context, isn't it? Providing us these amazing spaces.
It's not simply set at 45 degrees or square or anything like that, and because of that, it kind of creates all of these opportunities for engagement with the public, and I think with the restrained palette of that straight line and that radius, I think that Harry Seidler's made a really great and hopefully sacred space.
Well, it's been wonderful talking to you today, Dylan, so
Pleasure.
Thank you very much for showing us through.
Pleasure.
Thanks.
All right.